Right. We have Robert Chavez, is that right? If you could unmute for me.
Yes, Rob Chavez.
Gotcha. You're the owner applicant on this.
I am.
Okay, great. Welcome. And you're not expecting anyone else to join us here today?
Unfortunately, excuse me. Unfortunately, our architect had a death in the family, so she's not able to attend. And her replacement, the engineer, came down with the flu. So I don't know if he's going to join or not. But I think we can hopefully get to. I know it's quite the week. I feel terrible for our architect, of course, and engineer as well.
Yeah. Sorry to hear that. But yeah, let's go ahead and proceed. I think we'll be able to get through it.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, welcome, Wes. We're just about to get started here. I need to read through our hearing script. This will basically just cover the procedure for the hearing, and then we'll jump into it. So this is the December 13th, 2023 session of the Zoning Hearing Examiner docket. My name is David Sturkey. Again, I'll be presiding over the hearing. Case before us today is case number ZH20230172. That's 750 Crevelings Lane. The purpose of this hearing is to allow applicants and any potential opposing parties to testify and to offer and refute evidence and testimony. This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and the supplemental rules of the zoning hearing examiner. All testimony and evidence that an applicant or any potential opposing party wishes to offer must be presented at this hearing. The hearing will proceed as follows. For our purposes here today, I'll hear from the applicant and the owner, Mr. Chavez. Just background of the project, any details you think is important for me to know, and then of course why you think the requested relief is appropriate. I'll then go over to Wes. I'll give him an opportunity to provide any testimony. In addition to his staff report, I'll ask some questions along the way. I'll give you a chance to respond to anything Wes said and then make any closing statements. We'll wrap it up. After all presentations have been made, I will close the hearing. Decisions may be expected within 2 weeks. I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of the application being considered. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or to make any comments. In the event of any technical difficulties with the Zoom technology, I'll do my best to troubleshoot those on the fly. But to the extent there's some defect that prevents us from me fully going forward with this hearing, I may continue or postpone the hearing at my discretion. Okay, last thing to do is just swear in all of our witnesses. So if you can make sure you're off mute, just need you to raise your right hand and answer out loud. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
I do.
Okay, great, fantastic. Mr. Chavez, are you ready?
Yes.
Floor is yours.
Perfect. I appreciate it, Mr. Sturkey, Mr. Munzel. Thank you both for taking the time. Mr. Sturkey, you're correct. We did speak about a month ago. I called to inquire about the possibility of a consent agenda for the more non-controversial items, such as what I hope we'll all agree this case meets that definition. My wife and I and our 2 children, we currently live in the property. The property sits on, or excuse me, the property is approximately 1.425 acres and has a high level of privacy due to how the home is situated related to the neighboring properties. Our goal with this project and this request is to replace an existing wooden deck that's off the rear of our home that's approximately, 23 feet by 10 feet and is end of life, with a new deck that would be approximately 24 feet by 23 feet and have a gazebo style roof covering. So effectively what we're trying to do is add 13 feet of depth to an existing end of life wooden deck by putting in a new deck that would be nicer and able to accommodate what we're looking for. What we're trying to do with the gazebo style roof is not unlike what our neighbors currently have. Our neighbors to the south at 744 Crevelings Lane, and they enjoy regularly. I also believe that they submitted a letter of support for this project that I hope you have. Because our home is in the Hillside Overlay District, it's subject to the rear setback averaging calculation. This calculation means that our 13-foot deck expansion that would maintain an 86.6-foot rear setback requires setback relief of 151.4 feet. The averaging calculations uses the base zoning for the side of the home that does not have an abutting property. That's let's call it the north side. And then our neighbors at 744 Crevelings Lane to come up with the setback requirement. As I know you're aware, our neighbors at 744 Crevelings Lane have an unusually deep lot. It's kind of a pizza slice shape, and it just goes back, farther than the eye can see, effectively, with wooded, unusable land. The result of that calculation is a completely unreasonable and unrealistic rear setback requirement of 238 feet. It's just not a realistic rear setback for an urban environment like the city of Cincinnati. And frankly, it would render our current home at 750 Crevelings unbuildable. The current requirement, it deprives us of reasonable enjoyment of our property, similar to what homes in the area, including 744 Crevelings Lane, enjoy. The proposed deck expansion, it's reasonable. It will not negatively impact any neighboring property or the hillside. It'll go virtually unnoticed by the public. The only neighbor that would have a real view of the expansion has written a letter of support. The hillside regulations clearly were not written to prevent 13-foot deck expansions with rear setbacks of 86 feet. As I'm sure Mr. Munzel will speak to, but as he wrote in his letter, he stated that the deck project conforms from a height, side setback, cut and fill perspective. The building volume is well within the allowable volume or the impossible rear setback requirement. So I really feel like it's a very reasonable request. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to go through as needed the application that I provided. But I'm hopeful that you'll agree that this request is modest and that frankly, this is something that zoning code should be updated to allow by a matter of right. It does seem like this is a significant step to take to add 13 feet of outdoor space. So that's all I have. Happy to answer any questions.
Sure. Yeah. I don't have any questions. Just for the record, this won't create any cliff-like vertical slopes or affect the integrity of the hillside in any way, correct?
No. Yeah, we've had geotechnical engineering report following the recommendations built to last.
Sure. Okay, great. I don't have any more questions. Wes, anything you wanted to add?
Not really, other than just reiterating the rear setback averaging calculation really skews it due to the really deep lot next door. And there's no it's a reasonable request, and there's a hardship because that really deep lot next door. So it's conforming to the height and conforming to the cut and fill rules. So all around, reasonable project.
Sure. Okay. Great. Yeah. Mr. Chavez, anything in closing?
No, just appreciate everyone taking the time.
Okay, great. So I've had an opportunity to review the application materials, the staff report. Based on the testimony I've heard here today, I am going to approve the application. I need to formalize that approval in a written decision. I mentioned at the beginning that typically takes about 2 weeks. As I look at the calendar now, I notice that Christmas is within those 2 weeks, but I'll do everything I can to get this out to you as soon as possible. And by the end of the year, I just have a little bit of a queue I need to work through on some of these decisions. As soon as I finish the decision, I put it into a PDF. I'll email it to you and to Wes at the same time. As soon as Wes has that, he can approve the zoning and hopefully he can move forward at that point.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I will say too, for the record, I mean, I agree that whenever you have a zoning code that covers the entire city, there's just inevitably going to be these anomalies that just don't fit. That's why the variance process exists. I know in this case, and I've had others similar to this, it does seem a bit unreasonable. I think everyone would agree with you. And again, as someone who's rewritten parts of the zoning code and is even currently working on some revisions on the zoning code that might impact applications like this, it's really hard to design a code that applies how it should across the board and across all properties, particularly in hillside. So I know it's frustrating, but I appreciate you going through the process, and I appreciate, despite that, your professional and thorough presentation.
I get it. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
No problem.
And Mr. Munzel was very helpful throughout the process. I do want to state that for the record.
Great. I appreciate that. Well, happy holidays. Good luck on the project, and you'll be hearing from me soon.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
You too.